Come on. Hmm. Promise you we're live here. All right. Sorry about that.
I never didn't believe in Bigfoot. I never believed in it. I didn't believe in it. I never gave it any thought.
They kept wood knocking back and forth to each other, and it was in a pattern.
Barn owls don't typically throw rocks.
I come across these tracks.
Sasquatch is still not on my mind.
What's up, everybody in the chat and everybody watching, listening in the future on the iTunes and the Spotify's. Full disclosure, this was not supposed to be live tonight, but since we're having bad weather tomorrow and all the kids are out of school, I'm kind of sort of out of work. We're going to do it live. We're going to have a good time. This is going to be kind of a party. So if you got questions in the chat, want to start a conversation, ask anything, let us know. It's going to be kind of a no holds bars, cryptid paranormal free for all. We got a great guest tonight. I remind everybody to subscribe and please share, and that we have merch over on bobbydizzle.com. Just go to bobbydizzle.com. Merch is at the top. We got a coffee cup for the Caffeinated Cryptid, of course. Here's my coffee. You can't see it. And barred owls don't typically throw rocks gear. We've got a barred owl shirts. I got a hoodie, a real nice hoodie, and a sticker, and a coffee cup. But they all have that same little logo on it. So without further ado, let's end this. Bring in our guest, Mr. John Olsen, an author of true paranormal stories from around the world, Utah, out west, what have you. Is it called the Stranger Series, John?
Yeah, Stranger Bridgeland is what the series is called.
Stranger Bridgeland. Okay.
Because when I started, it was just in the area that I'm from, which has the nickname of Bridgerland. Because originally it was first kind of searched out by Jim Bridger, the famous kind of outdoorsman kind of a guy, and so it's kind of unofficially called Bridgerland, part of northern Utah, southern Idaho, part of Wyoming. So
is that what the mountain range is called in Montana, the Bridgers?
I'm not sure. It could be. I'm sure there is one that's called the Bridgers up there. Yeah.
Yeah. Outside of Bozeman, there's the Bridgers. They go, oh, you got to look at the Bridgers over there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. He went all over the West, man. He did a lot of, just trapping and everything. And then later on, showed people where to go and where to settle. So he left a big footprint here, you could say. So
a big footprint. Yeah, you got, I would have, I said would have, I will. I would read the heck out of these books. I love the true stories. Where do you get the content? Do you research them or people send them in?
So originally, what started all of this is when I was a little kid. I grew up in a house that was built in 1883, and it was very paranormally active. So it got me really interested in the paranormal. So I started studying everything. And by the time I was a teenager, I was telling my stories, and then people started bringing me their stories. And then, I just started collecting and hunting them down and trying to find them there for a long time. It was all, word of mouth and hunting down, the story from it came from this person. But since my first book came out about 8 years ago, then I've had a lot of people, just emailing them and contacting me that way. And it's kind of grown from there. So.
All right. And if y'all want to, in the future or in the chat right now, whoever's watching, I put a link to all his books in the description. His Amazon, the John Olsen Amazon HQ. He's got a bunch of them.
Yeah, I've got 7 right now, and I'm working on number 8. So
Cool,
But
cool.
yeah, and I
Chris
love
said he rips
all of
in
it. Like I got
Mhm.
Bigfoot stories, cryptid stories, ghosts, UFOs, you name it. Anything to do with the paranormal, I talk to people and get the stories because, like you say, I just love. The one thing that I make sure is that it has to come from the person that it actually
Mhm.
happened in order to go into the book because to me that makes it, it just legitimizes it, I guess you could say. So
Yeah, it definitely helps not uh, a word of mouth from the person. That's why I think that I haven't like sailed off to any kind of success is because when they have me on, all I do is tell stories that I've heard. I'm
right.
like Tom Hanks in News of the World. I'm like, well, the guy from Minnesota said this. I'm like, I promise you, like I'm in the field too. I've been on a couple of Bigfoot adventures. Got another one coming up. Have you ever been? Do you ever do any researching of your own, like in the field?
I do a little bit. Yeah, I definitely go out and search. Um, I'm an outdoorsman, so I spent,
Hmm.
since I've been a kid, I spent time in the outdoors. And honestly, personally, the closest I ever got was some footprints that my son and I found early one spring. But
Hmm.
that's on my bucket list of finding and getting an actual, interaction with a Sasquatch would be just amazing to me, personally. So.
Now, now I've been thinking about that as well. Would you consider, the top five basically of Sasquatch interactions? You got wood knocking, you got vocalization, whether it be a whoop or a scream. You got the rocks thrown at you, and eye shine. I think if you had like 2 out of 5 of those, I know it's not five, but everybody here knows what I'm talking about. I wonder if that would like count as like a partial sighting, like a derivative sighting almost.
Yeah, I think so. I definitely count that towards it. I mean, just the fact that I was able to find some
Yeah,
tracks.
and seeing a
that-
footprint's one of those too.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
that was really exciting. Like for me and my son, I think he was 8 at the time, 9. Um,
Mhm.
and we went up, and the mountains around here, during the winter they're locked off, so you can't drive on them.
Yeah.
Tear them up. And then when they like the day they open, we usually drive up and we look for deer sheds and we do all kinds of stuff, and we happen to come across these tracks, and they weren't in soft enough stuff that we could get a good print, if because
Yeah.
or I would have run and got some cast, but it was obvious to me that it was something that it was a Sasquatch track and where it
Yeah.
had come down through. So but it was really
And,
exciting for both of us.
and it's not a buffalo or an elk or a sheep or a moose because they're just like almost like a circle.
Yeah.
The only thing it could be maybe is a bear, and that's a big maybe.
Yeah, yeah, and just the way like I said, since I'm a kid, I've
Yeah.
spent in the mountains tracking and hunting, so it was one of those things where I could definitely tell it was something on 2 feet, and there were
Yeah.
almost parts where you could almost get it, but people don't realize they don't always run in mud. Some up here
No.
it's rocks, it's dirt, it's all kinds of weird stuff that you're running through. So
It almost seems like they try not to get in stuff that they can get printed in. It's like
yeah, I would imagine.
it's almost like they have to step into places where you do get them. That's why you see a lot of pictures of smushed down grass. People give you grass and the sand.
Yep.
Well, that's a nice
Yep.
picture of smushed grass you got there, buddy.
Yeah,
Thanks.
exactly. Exactly. So,
I was looking at I'm putting together plans to build a studio in the backyard and like a she shed, and or I might as well call it a podcast shed. Make it a studio with all the acoustics, the acoustic sponges and everything. And I'm looking at I'm trying to find like a fake Sasquatch track to put back there.
oh,
And all I can find is people who are giving me ones. It says unknown creature. I'm like, dude, that is fake. You made that. Why do you
right,
have 75 of them for sale? You didn't
right,
go out there and get those.
right. I have one plaster cast that it's a replica plaster cast that I got from Jeff Meldrum.
Mhm.
That's from the original Patty
Yeah.
casts that it's one of my favorite things I have. So, uh,
Did you get it from Jeff Meldrum?
yeah, I did.
I
So
would say I would actually pay money to have one, just a fake one, knowingly fake, just to have it.
Right, right. And he has the originals and then he makes some casts of them.
Yeah.
And I got one of those, which is it because it's amazing to hold in your hand and see how actual,
Mhm.
how big and the toes
it's
and
like-
everything. It's kind of cool. Yeah, it's huge.
I just had Sunday 4 days ago, I guess, the guy that helped find that original filming site back in the early 2000s.
Oh, wow,
And
that's
Robert
cool.
Leiterman, he was up there with all the Steven Strufert and Daniel Perez. They apparently had like a giant room, like a murder board set up of like yarn and making it like a giant map.
Oh, that's
I,
cool.
he told that story. He talked for an hour straight, and I tried to be a host and ask. I didn't have to.
He just went off. Yeah.
At one point, I went to the bathroom and just listened in my headphones. Like, okay, I'll be right back.
No, I'll be right back. Yeah.
Yeah, that
That's
patty
funny.
thing. That patty thing is amazing because who knows what it was,
Right. Yeah.
and who knows if it was what's his name, Hieronymus.
Yeah.
I don't know. He seems like he's trying to be a Johnny Come Lately, to be honest, but I don't know.
Well, and it's funny because I think there was at least 3 different guys at different times claiming that they were the guy in the suit.
Mhm.
So you just, and when you look at it, especially those that have stabilized it, the film,
Yeah.
it's just
They,
kind of amazing. I just personally don't see how anybody could make a suit that good, especially back then. But anyway, it is what it is. So
I really would like to see like actual new footage of it. Even I guess everybody else would too. But you would think I bring it up every time this subject comes up with the movie Nope is actually really telling about how Roger Patterson did it with that camera that's spring loaded. The guy from Nope designed the one just like it and got the picture of that. So you think there'd be like a hipster line or hippie line of cameras come out that's dolphin friendly, spring loaded, no lithium batteries,
right.
and the squatchers be all over them.
Yeah, that would be cool. So, and I imagine it would be expensive to find one of those old ones now. So,
They're surprisingly easy to find. They're not that cheap.
Oh,
They're like $600
yeah.
if they're working because the parts
Yeah.
are a lot of times redone. I'm really shocked that there's not like one of those new brands. Like they brought back vinyls for God's sake. And bell bottoms are coming back. The flannels are back. Why can't they bring back spring loaded cameras?
Spring loaded cameras. I know. That's crazy.
Ristel said any thoughts an additional 10 seconds of footage from the Patterson Gimlin film. I ain't even seen the additional ones.
I think they're if I'm not mistaken, it's just as it disappears into as it's walking completely away. I could be wrong, but I think it's that. But yeah, the whole thing is kind of, and in what's interesting to me too is that when he originally showed it, it really didn't have the detail that they're able to pull out of it now because they were someone, I'm trying to remember who was actually working with Dr. Meldrum and was able to pull the original, and then they were able to pull film from the original reel, which gave them even more detail with the new computers and everything. So
I think the little rumor about there was a massacre beforehand. I've heard that one a lot lately.
Oh, yeah.
I don't really buy that. I don't really buy that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and in that area and all over the country, one of the things that I love is when I'm able to, like, if I hear a story, whether it's Sasquatch or Bigfoot, and then I dive into the Native American lore of it, there's just some fascinating stories about the Native Americans and, their stories about Sasquatch and even, stories of them having wars with them at, certain points. And it's just really kind of, I think it's really cool. The whole thing is really cool.
Yeah. Have you ever done any like research into like fays, the fairy people and that kind of folklore, ancient scholars?
Yeah, I have actually. When I first started, that was one thing that I never thought, like, I never thought I would run into or people that had stories like that. One of the first ones, I talked to this guy and he got me this story, and it was funny. He was like insistent, like, I'm not crazy. I promise I'm not crazy. Over and
Not
over again.
crazy. Sounds like something a
And
crazy person would say.
I'm not a crazy person. And he talked about when he was in his 20s, he moved to this area. He loved the outdoors, and he came here to
Mhm.
visit a friend and just fell in love with the area in northern Utah. And him and his buddy were going to go camping to this area. It's called Mount Naomi. And at the last minute, his buddy canceled. And being in his 20s, he's like, I'll just go myself. And it's really, you can do it in a day hike, but he wanted to camp up there kind of. It's right near the tree line. It's really high up. And there was a burn ban on. It was in August. And so he just took food to eat. And, he went off the trail and laid out his bedroll, had something to eat, and then kind of put on his headlamp, read a little bit, and then fell asleep. And he woke up, and he said he's a heavy sleeper and it takes a lot to wake him up. So he woke up and didn't know what had woken him up. And so he was sitting there, and all of a sudden he could hear something whistling at him. And it was really weird. Now, when he's telling me this, I'm almost thinking, Sasquatch at this point, but he's trying to find his headlamp, and he can't find it. And then he gets hit in the chest with like a little rock about the size of a quarter. And he finally realizes, oh, my headlamp's still in my head. So he flips his headlamp on and looks over, and on this little rock pile, maybe 15 feet from him, is this little creature that he explained. The way he explained it is it looked like the little goblins that run Harry Potter's banks with the pointy ears and the pointy nose and just old ragged clothes.
Dobby.
And, like Dobby. and it put its hand up like this to cover its eyes when he shined on it. And he's just trying to process all of this, which I can only imagine. And then he notices it's trying to slip something behind his back. And he looks and he realizes that it's got the book he was reading when he went to bed. He always brought a little paperback, like old novel to read. And he realizes this thing was close enough to steal that from him. And it kind of snapped him out of it. He grabbed his stuff and headed for the trail, tripped just as he got to the trail. All his stuff went. He's trying to gather his stuff. He can hear the whistling starting behind him again. He finally gets most of his stuff, runs to his truck, all the way down the hill to his truck. And, but he's like, if somebody told me that, I would have never believed it. But he's like, I swear I didn't dream it. It really happened. And so, but what was really interesting about that, so I got looking into it, and what he's kind of explaining in Native American lore is the Pukwudgie, which is what they call it. Yeah. But what really kind of shocked me too is I put that in one of my books, and I had 2 different people contact me that said that they had similar experiences in that same area. The one lady who emailed me, she said, my husband, who was elk hunting that area, came across one of those, and he was in shock. He told me this story, and I didn't believe him. I thought he was crazy. I thought he was telling me a story. And then I read your book and showed it to him, and we both about died when we realized that somebody else had actually seen that creature too. So that's one of my favorites, just because it's so kind of out there. But I can tell you from interviewing that guy, he really believed what he saw for sure.
Yeah. Anytime I get asked, anytime I'm ever on another show, I always get asked what my favorite cryptid is. That's not like the part of the big 3, the Sasquatch and everything. And I always say Pukwudgie.
Yeah.
I said, there's so much fun. The lore, like what you just said, and in Mexico, their version of it, how they build a little house for it outside of Walmart when they make one.
Right.
Yeah, they make offerings, give it tobacco and candy.
The little Duende is what I believe I interviewed a lady too. I interviewed her through her daughter because she didn't speak English, but she'd grown up in Mexico, and her story was, her and her brother, she was 7 or 8 years old, and she had a brother that was a year older, and they fought all the time. And one day they were at school and got caught fighting and had to stay after. and they were on their way home, and they fought, and her brother ran off. And as she's walking home, they just lived in a little farm just outside of town.
Mhm.
Something hit her with a dirt clod, and she thought it was her brother. And so she jumps into the brush to attack her brother. But here's this little guy, black hair, little beard, in ragged clothes, and he's got a dirt clod, and he yells at her that her brother is his person. Leave him alone. You're mean to my person, and hits her again and runs off. And she runs home bawling and tells her mom. And so her mom talked to her about the duende, and they had to write a note and make cookies and leave it out
Oh,
by the
yeah.
barn for the duende to say, we'll get along. We're not going to fight anymore. But yeah, it's really steeped in their culture down there too, which is kind of cool. So
And they'll like burn your house down if you don't do that kind of stuff.
yeah,
It's not small potatoes. They come after with a vengeance. They're like the new Oompa Loompas.
yeah,
Thousandfold revenge.
thousandfold revenge. Yeah, I love hearing stories and the folklore about it. But when I actually get to talk to somebody that's had an experience, that's really kind of cool.
Did they have the slick back Sonic the Hedgehog hair he was talking about?
The way she explained it was kind of his was kind of bushy, and his beard was kind of black and bushy, and almost looked like a 3-foot tall homeless dude, but kind of still pointy features, yeah, it's kind of cool.
I always pictured the brownies from Willow when I thought about Puckwudgies. Even though I've researched them enough, I just picture I'm talking about, the little guys.
Yeah.
That threw spears.
Yeah.
Chris asking about the telepathic of Sasquatch. Yeah, definitely, Chris. That's a thing. It's a big thing.
Well, and in speaking of that, so like I said, I've never actually seen one, but I've been in a position when I was in the mountains, and I've talked to other people too, where I walked into a place. I was fishing one time when I was in my early 20s, and I was all alone, and I was probably a good 2 miles back on this hike, and I walked into this area, and everything went quiet, and I just had this overwhelming sensation of fear, and that I was not welcome in that area. And I've talked to other people who've had that same experience. And it wasn't until I climbed the mountain to get out of that area before it went away. And I kind of thought maybe that might have been something like that, where it was kind of, I don't know if you call it telepathic, other than the fact that something was letting me know that I was not welcome in that area without using vocalization or anything. It was more of a feeling. So
that going quiet thing is a telltale sign. It's like a business card.
Yeah. Yep. And that is way scary. And I've talked to a lot of people who have had that happen. So
that's often explained through infrasound, like lions and tigers have it. But in a way, that's just as telepathic as anything else. If you can make a sound with your brain that makes people feel fear, that's a superpower.
It really is. Yeah.
And it's awful.
And it's something where, like you say, it's you hear it or feel it, but you don't necessarily hear it. It's the fact that you can feel it in your body, in your very soul. It can be scary. I know my experience was really scary. So,
a gentleman named Roger, it's Squatch and Holler is his channel name. He said that he got immobilized standing straight up, and it wouldn't let him move until he promised in his mind that he would leave.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he is just, he tells that story, he gets serious. I couldn't imagine. He may be watching. I don't know.
Yeah. Wow.
He told me he was already in bed, but yeah.
Yeah, that's scary. That's for sure. That can be scary. I know, even, when I think of like the things that are out there, one year when I was younger again, I was alone and I was bow hunting, and I'd gone down to watch this I was deer hunting with my bow, and I was in the brush, and I was using a fawn call to try and see if there was anything around, and nothing. And I waited, but when I left, it was very obvious a mountain lion had walked right behind me and had stood like less than 10 feet from me behind me.
Mhm.
and then had left, and I'd never heard a single thing of it. So yeah, there's a lot of things out there that can be scary. Not just Sasquatch, but there's a lot of other things out there that can be
Man,
scary. Well,
that's pretty brave using a phone call in Utah. There's stuff
I
out there to kill you.
yeah, there
That's,
is. I was in my 20s. I was not the smartest.
we use them in Alabama and get bobcats and
Uh,
like stray dogs, but and you maybe there's a mountain lion, one or two, but out there's something much bigger than mountain lions.
yeah,
We
there's a
got those
lot.
grizzly
There's a lot.
bears.
There's bears, and there's a lot up here. So it's
Wolves. Shit, wolves. Forgot about wolves.
well, it's like not official, but I have actually come across a lot of wolf tracks up here. So the state calls them just rogue wolves, meaning there's no pack, but
Yeah.
honestly, there's got to be a pack up here, as many as I see. So
We've got kind of a scandal like that going on in the South about Black Panthers.
oh
And I don't know why they're keeping them secret, but it's almost like you get like your cryptid fix with them.
yeah,
Because they see them and people see them, and there's all kinds of game cameras. But the state representatives like, there's no Black Panthers. I'm like, bitch, there's like 97. What is that then? Is it Bagheera? Who are you, Mowgli? What is?
well,
Where's
and
Baloo
I
at?
know the state of Utah. I know exactly why they're doing it, because if they can just say, because there was a guy that was this is in central Utah, so it's way down south. He killed a wolf. He was coyote hunting and killed a wolf,
Mhm.
and they're like, oh well, it was just a like a Ronin. It was all alone. There's no packs in Utah, because the minute there's actually a pack, then the Fish and Game has to
Mhm.
start making regulations. They have to go through federal. They have to go, and they just don't want that headache until they
Mhm.
absolutely have to.
That's a
So
lot of the speculation around here is they don't want to admit it because they didn't have to regulate it
yeah,
and be responsible if something happened to somebody. And right now it's just like, that's not there. Nothing happened to you.
yeah, exactly. Yep, exactly. Well, and so I've heard that people are now catching, at least in Texas, every once in a while, Texas and Arizona, the jaguars have moved
Mhm.
further north too. So that's kind of crazy.
That's a whole nother ball of wax there.
Yeah, because they're
That's
huge.
that's another animal. That's like an African lion with spots.
Yeah, they're enormous, which is
I thought they were just like a cheetah that was like on the continent of South America. I
right.
didn't realize they were like literally, like I said, as big as a lion.
Yeah,
And
they're
when I saw that one grab
enormous.
that crocodile out of the Amazon and walk with it, holy shit, that's a full blown Alec.
I know. Well, and originally, originally their range came all the way up here up to
Mhm.
like northern
Oh
Utah
yeah.
and everything, and same with the mountain lions and everything, and grizzlies, and so yeah, and with the way conservation is and everything, now they're moving and growing. Their range is growing, and you can see in Utah, like with mountain lions, you used to have to put in for a tag, and it would take you like 5 years, but there's so many of them right now. The state allows you to shoot one on site because they're just having trouble controlling all of the population, and it's hard on the deer population. It's hard on the elk population. So
Yeah.
well,
They're having that problem with the wolves. You always hear Cam Haines talking about the wolves, how they're
yeah.
coming back.
One of my good friends was on a bear hunt in Canada this last spring, and his phone kept going off in his pants, and he's like, who's trying to call me? They know I'm on a hunt, and it was him and his buddy sent him a picture, and he looked at it, and his buddy was further up from him, and the picture was a bunch of wolves that were circling around on him. His buddy was trying to let him know that.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so he popped up. He had a tag. He was on a bear hunt, but he actually had a tag for a wolf and ended up killing one of those that were hunting him, which scared the crap out of him. But and those wolves are huge too. So
Mhm.
it's the same ones that are here now. But yeah, there's a lot of things out there. So
Getting live footage of you being stalked in a text. Jesus.
yeah, that would scare you. You're like, what does he want? And then you look at it and you're like, oh no. But,
That's interesting. It follows in one of the questions I actually had in mind about does any of your stories or books relate to like the Pilates series 411?
You know,
How they just go
they
missing?
very well
Oof.
could. Yeah. The one that I often wonder about a lot. I interviewed this. It was another one where I thought it was a one-off thing, but it turned
Hmm.
out to not be. There was a guy I interviewed, and when he was growing up, they used to camp a lot up Logan Canyon, which is a big canyon here in northern Utah, and him and his family and extended family would camp, and him and his cousins would play all day. And he had a cousin that was a year or two older than him that he really looked up to, and they decided a little later in the evening they were going to play hide and seek, but they were supposed to stay near camp. And
Hmm.
he ended up being the one that was seeking, and he'd found a couple of the other kids, and then he noticed his cousin was up near this draw, near the draw away from camp, and his cousin's motioning, for him to follow him. And so he goes over to where his cousin was, and now his cousin's gone, and his cousin's further up the trail, up this canyon, and he's motioning for him to follow him again. And so he follows him several times, and he finally is like, wondering what's going on, because every time he gets to the next tree where his cousin was, now his cousin's further up the canyon, motioning for him to follow. And he starts getting a really, weird feeling, because he's like, we're not supposed to be this far from camp. And he finally just gets freaked out and runs back to camp, because he ended up being a long ways up this canyon.
Hmm.
And when he gets back, his cousin's sitting there eating a hot dog, and he
Holy.
yells at his cousin. He's like, what were you doing, trying to get me to follow you? And his mother's like, he's been here the whole time. He was hiding under the trailer
Oh my
when you
God.
were looking. He's never left camp. So it was something mimicking his cousin, trying to lure him
Hmm.
away. And like I said, that was one where I thought it was a one-off, but I've had so many people contact me after that have had situations both, in the forest and also in suburban areas, where something is mimicking a family member or a friend that these kids really look up to,
Hmm.
and trying to lure them away, either into an abandoned building. One was an abandoned building. This girl, her cousin, again, something mimicking her cousin, was trying to draw her into this building. And um, in that same canyon from the first one, there were two other stories of kids that said, yeah, this thing tried to lure me away, and it ended up not being that family member, and ended up being something else. So I often wonder if those stories aren't somehow connected to that missing 411, if there's some sort of
Hmm.
something out there trying to lure people away. And the people that go missing are the ones that go too far, follow a little too far or something. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. Imagine you're out there with your buddies and or your son or something. You see him going up the trail. Like come
Yeah.
back and you chase after him. All of a sudden you're snatched up on a spaceship or in a hole. I don't know.
Something.
Wherever
I
you
don't
go.
know
I don't.
either. Yeah.
And
It's
the Fae.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Could be the
So,
Fae.
yeah, that could
What
be
is a
too.
Rakshasha? That's a new one.
Right.
Maybe I'm saying it wrong. And I've heard the name before. Hmm.
I'm
Had
not
to look that
sure.
one up.
Yeah. Well, and what's funny is not too long ago I was watching a show, um, and there's a tribe up in a Native American tribe in Alaska that has, a folklore creature that does that very same thing. It
Hmm.
mimics family members and tries to lure you off into the woods, which I had not heard of until, after I had actually tried to do some studying after I interviewed some
Hmm.
of these people. So,
I've heard of the little grays turning into a rabbit and
oh,
luring
really?
people. Yeah, like they see like a 3 or 4 foot rabbit, which that ain't gonna happen in my state because you'll just have 3 or 4 foot rabbits too.
Right.
But I don't know where
Right.
3 or 4 foot rabbits getting away. Cause
I don't know.
and then there was one that man, this is weird. I can't remember who told me. It was like a cryptid researcher saying there was reports a kid was in the chicken house gathering eggs, and this rabbit walked in with a bow around its neck, like a 4 foot. I'm getting chills thinking about it. Can you
Wow.
imagine if you just saw like Bugs Bunny walk up in real life?
Yeah. That would be
And
weird.
same guy said he had reports of a kid that saw Santa Claus out uh, by his garbage cans. And it was like a real Santa Claus. And he looked up and there was like a craft in the air around it.
Wow,
Who
that's
told me that?
weird. That's weird.
I wonder who
Yeah.
told me that. I bet I haven't aired that episode and I'm spoiling the heck out of it. Y'all forget it.
Never mind.
got-
Never mind.
I've got like 10 weeks worth of episodes I haven't aired yet. And I recant them like everybody was there. Yeah, I think fays are elementals, Chris. Fays and all that. It's all like
Yeah.
one big category.
Yeah, definitely could be for sure.
Hindu
So.
Rashaka is a Hindu demon that can impersonate friends and family. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. And you know what? That's what I think's really cool is when I get into this, like say I'll hear a story or a couple stories where I interview people and then I get into the fae or into the folklore. And it's amazing to me how many people from around the world have, that our ancestors, whether they're from, America or in their Europe or, Asia, they have these same creatures that they talk about. They just have different names, but they have exactly the same, things that they do. It's the same. And so you got to realize, there's got to be something to it other than just, folklore. The fact that these same creatures are doing the same things. They just have different names from all over the world. So
you know who Jason McLean is, don't you?
sounds really familiar.
He's an author as well, but does a lot of cryptid stories and things. He was talking about the similarities between Bigfoot stories and the Fae.
Oh,
how they're the same. There's knock on wood, which is a Fae thing. You knock on wood for Bigfoot. They have the same the telepathy. They do. There's a bunch of different things. I haven't aired that episode either, but it's the similarities. That's like an episode of its own. Like it almost explains it.
Yeah. Yep. And that's really fascinating to me that they have, so similar of things.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot, you know this, I'm sure there's a lot of argument between Bigfoot researchers because you have those that are like, no, it's a real actual creature that, blah, blah, blah. And then others that are like, well, it's ethereal or it's, this. And what I love is in Native American lore, it's kind of both. It's like a physical creature at times, but then also, an ethereal creature too. In their, I don't want to say folklore because it's much more like religion to them, but not religion. It's hard to explain, but
it's almost the gentrified version of their stories. Like that's fake. Those crazy savages. I'm like, how do you know? You're on the wrong vibration. They live they are the woods 24/7.
Yeah.
I think it's. I'm saying I'm not that kind of person, but I think it's kind of arrogant and or borderline racist if they call it folklore.
Right.
I'm not like woke or anything. I'm just saying
No.
it's kind of mean of us to call it that.
Right. Well,
that's just us disrespecting them by calling it that.
And a lot of people when they think of folklore, they automatically say fake story.
Yep.
And a lot of it has roots in true story because the Native Americans in particular, what was the only way they passed on stories really was, it was oral tradition.
On a cave.
Yeah. And so, oral tradition just has this thing about it where people automatically think it's not real or, when in fact there are definitely parts of it that are very definitely real. So
now, Tiffany and I got tea time with Tiffany. Got in a couple of discussions about the cave paintings, among other things, how the Bigfoots and the cave paintings all look the same. And we comedically say it looked like the red guy from Bugs Bunny, Gossamer.
Yeah, almost no head, just
like a
flat.
bump and two big eyes and
two big eyes. Yep,
that's across the board. That's everywhere. I mean, that's what's that? Australia. I couldn't come up with Australia for some reason.
Yeah,
like China, they all have that same picture. So it's not.
Yeah,
if I went back in time, I'd go back and see what cultures. Like everybody's like, oh, I'd go see Jesus or I'd go kill Hitler. I'd be like, no, I'm going to go find out who the hell built these pyramids.
Yeah, that's
and
me too.
Why everybody has the same thing.
Yeah, well, at that, and then also the grays too, like the alien kind of round teardrop head and large eyes. That's
Mhm.
another one that shows up every time too. The same, and it's funny too because you'll have the people who are like, well, you know, they have a picture of a buffalo, which everybody can tell is a buffalo, and then they have a
Mhm.
Sasquatch, and they're like, oh, they can paint that because they saw it, but this was there in
Yeah.
their imagination, and this was real, and I'm like, they painted what they saw.
Mhm. The almost laser jet image of the mammoth,
Right,
real.
right.
The also very detailed picture of the giant Sasquatch.
That was made up.
Peyote,
That was made up.
that fire water, he's smoking that
Right.
cactus juice.
Right, right. The gray aliens, that was when they, that's the period where they were just making things up, and but yeah,
Now
I think it's funny.
they have debunked the little golden airplanes. Those have been debunked, which I'm okay with. I mean, whatever. But they
Yeah,
have not debunked the pictures of the people in the spaceship,
right.
the people that are in the pilot seat. Now, what the hell is that? That's across the world too.
Yeah. Yep, that one, and then the other one, that one's really popular too. And then the other one that shows up all over in ancient is the guys that with wings and they're holding a bag in the
Hmm.
exact same
Yeah,
position.
like the little clutch off to the
Yeah.
side, like a
Yep.
laptop almost.
Yep, that's in like Mesopotamian and in South America. It's just like all the way across the board, the exact same too. So definitely something involved there with something that they saw that,
Hmm.
because it's their hands in the same position. It's the same. I mean, it's exactly the same. I find that it's
I'm gonna look that up
crazy.
because it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's an ancient pics of
Um,
people holding bags.
Holding the bags, yeah. And I know sometimes the head is different, like some had an eagle head or some had,
Yeah,
whatever, but um yeah, it's really kind of weird that
it's really
and
neat because it's like the same bag across all cultures.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
it's like the same designer.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
well,
That
I fe-
and the other one too that goes across everything is the same with yeah, right there. And there they are. Yep. And then the other one, a lot of them too have their other hand in that same position as well. So, yeah.
like, what is that? I mean, I wonder.
I don't know.
It's
But yeah, it's kind of fascinating that they do that. That and then like every culture also has a flood what they
mhm.
call the flood myth somewhere or another. So that's another one that's kind of crazy too. Just the
Man, it's like
different
the
things that
same
are
bag.
waved through it. So yeah, same bag. And we're talking about separated by, you know,
Hmm.
thousands and thousands of miles and 1,000 years in some cases, but
Like you can tell that one on the far right is like probably South American.
yeah, yep. So you got South American, Mesopotamian, and I think the other one, um, I don't know, one of the South America
Yeah,
ones,
I was
but
going to say Egyptian, but it doesn't look quite Egyptian.
yeah,
That one
yep.
right there is
But it
definitely
wouldn't
Mesopotamian.
surprise me if there wasn't one that was Egyptian as
No,
well. So
that's the best picture I got of it.
yeah.
Probably tons of them.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's cool. That's the other thing that I love,
Awesome.
along with um, paranormal, is like out of place artifacts and things like that, and all those crazy things. I think it all kind of goes together, but
Hmm.
you know,
I think the Arabians had batteries too, but they made those out of like coils
yeah,
in big baskets.
yeah, yep, and yeah, there's a lot of things to deal with the ancient Egyptians, and when did actual culture start, and it always seems to getting pushed back further and
Hmm.
further about how old they think um, it is, but it's cool. So, but I think that's all kind of intertwined with everything. So,
Hmm. It probably goes back way farther than we think it does. Probably closer to a milli
yeah,
if I had
yeah,
if I had to guess.
yeah. Well, and then like for example, they have here in Utah somewhere, I can't remember where it was. They have human tracks over top of what they say are dinosaur tracks, and there's
Hmm.
just things like that that don't seem to mesh up with anything else. But it's it's cool, and that's one thing that I love about a lot of the people that I interview. When they have their paranormal experience, a lot of them are just having a regular, everyday, normal day, and then it drops in on them like, out of nowhere. So
I've been kind of like mentally preparing for a paranormal experience. What would I do so I don't freak out and so I don't like run?
right,
Like just like there it is. Like I'll vision like you're trying to manifest a text from somebody. I'll be like, okay, I'm in the woods. Sasquatch walks out. What do? Do you freak out? No. You stand still.
stand still.
don't
No.
don't run. I think anytime I would do anything with the intention of maybe having some kind of experience, I would like mentally prepare myself with good intentions, like sort of broadcast them out, introduce yourself.
Yeah. Yep. That's definitely, yeah. That's what I've heard from a lot of different people who've had, multiple Bigfoot sightings, is that, your intention is probably, they say, is very important. That,
Mhm.
and which is kind of
That's
cool.
how you have one. That's how you have a sighting anyway, is to have good intentions.
Yeah.
They don't appear to people with AKs and machetes.
Right. And people who are out there hunting for hunting, like trying to actually kill one, that would definitely be the wrong intention.
Yeah, I'm not going to see. I mean, the Bigfoot hunting thing is like the definition of insanity. Like
Yeah.
everybody does the same thing. Everybody did wrong to begin with, over and over and over.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
like we never see them. Well, no, I mean, first of, nobody thought you were going to.
Right. Yeah. That's like my son and I, when we used to watch the Finding Bigfoot, it was finally
Yeah.
sat down and I was like, they go out one day and do the same thing over and over again and then wonder why, they never have the experience. And I'm like, you got to change it up, probably do something else, or, anyway, but you know how it goes.
Mm-hmm. It's frustrating because I sit and think of ways, like since they're not dumb creatures, you would think there'd be a way to like negotiate with them to at least catch a glimpse. Like I'm not a bad person. Maybe
Right.
establish like a reputation of never having anything on you. I don't have a camera because I would 100% take the deal to know 100% that they were real, but not tell anyone else. Just
Right.
if any Bigfoot are listening, if you show yourself to me full frontal, I'm talking fatal indecent proposal style, just right there for like 10 seconds, I will not tell a soul. Anybody, any Bigfoot are in the chat.
Right. So one story that I never got, because she would never let me interview her, and I believe she's passed now. But there was a lady who, after her husband and her had retired, they became camp hosts for a camp that was a high mountain camp here in Utah. And I heard about this, and it took me a long time to hunt her down. And then she would never talk to me, but she did let somebody know that told me that she was not going to let me use the story or let me write the story or anything. But I can tell you what I do know. Her and her husband for like 5 or 6 years, when they were retired, were camp hosts of this high mountain camp. And during the week when nobody was up there, there was a female who had little ones that would come down and interact with her in the camp. And she got very close to them and got like a lot of interaction with this female and her 2 young ones. And part of it was, she obviously never wants anybody to know where this was. It was her own personal story that she'd shared with a few people. And I happened to have heard it through one of the people that she'd shared it. But yeah, she refused to give me any information or let me interview her at all. And like I said, she's passed now, but that would have been just the most amazing thing, because it went on for several years, a couple days a week when nobody else was in the camp. She would show up with her young ones, and she felt comfortable enough with this lady to have interactions. I don't know how the interactions went, but that would be the ultimate, like for me. And I can understand why she
Yeah.
would never want to let anybody know where that is or anything like that. But that would have been one of the, it's like my holy grail of stories that I'll
Oh,
never
yeah.
get now. But
I mean, it seems to be across the board with people with that level of sighting, like a double A sighting. They don't want anybody else involved because it's turns into less of like an interesting thing to them and more of a you got to protect them at all costs.
right. Yep. You got to
The
protect
bonding
them.
and imprinting is insane with them. Anybody
Yeah.
that's around them.
Right. And then the other thing too is, you know, it's some probably I can only imagine it was on the border of what you would call a spiritual experience. Maybe
Hmm.
you don't, you don't want to let other people into that. Which I can understand, but just as somebody who's never actually been able to see one or have that interaction, and knowing the amount of people out there that would just give anything to have
Hmm.
something like that, and I know personally I would give anything just to have that story to tell,
Hmm.
for my
I just like to
books.
hear
But
it, just to hear
yeah,
it from the person.
I'd
Yeah.
like, yeah, all of the details is what I would love, but and that's as far as I know in those details, is that there was just a female, and I guess there was a female, and she had a couple young, and then there was a male that she saw every once in a while, but he didn't want anything to do with them necessarily. But this female really bonded with her, so
Yeah. It's just the my question is for somebody like that would be, what does that look like compared to Patterson Gimlin?
right,
That's what I always ask anybody that sees them. Like, yeah, very similar. They always have the arms and the like the walk. Now
yeah.
Patterson Gimlin, the Patty Bigfoot has been doing squats because it's got a dumper. But other than that, it's like a Lizzo Bigfoot.
Yeah, yep. Oh man, yeah. I can only imagine what kind of physical strength it would take to live out there, through all of that. But that's crazy.
Or
So
where they go. I mean, if there is paranormal to them, maybe they clip over.
yeah,
Like they're going somewhere. I mean, if they're a population of apes, but where they go are something
yeah. Well, and that's the thing too. At least that makes me wonder if they're not going somewhere in
caves.
between, because I know that up here in northern Utah, especially when I was a kid, during the deer hunt, there was somebody every 100 yards in the mountains. How would they get away with not being seen during that time? But like you say, there's just something to that that is paranormal because we don't understand it. But
I call it the
because
field of dreams effect.
you can't feel the dreams effect. Yeah. Yep.
It's like walking to the corn and disappear. Like where do they go? Where do they go?
Yep.
They come back. They can come back when they want to.
Well, unlike his brother-in-law that couldn't see the baseball players, but everybody else
Yeah,
could. So
turned out to be the guy from Dreamcatcher.
yeah.
It's all tied together, bro.
Yep. That's funny.
So as far as we talked a shit ton about Bigfoot, but which is okay because I love that subject. What about the actual ghost side of it? As when your interviews goes,
Yeah, ghosts are actually, I think, more prevalent, at least those
yeah.
stories from
Oh yeah,
people.
everybody can get one of
Definitely.
those.
Everybody's run into a ghost. I can tell you that, in the house that I grew up in, a
Hmm.
couple of my personal stories, there was this guy, well, what we as kids called the man in the hat, because, when you're kids, you just kind of say what it looks like. And it was a guy with a wide brimmed cowboy hat, straw hat, and white shirt with overalls that you could see through. And I saw him quite a few times growing up. I remember one time that I'd come home from school and was sitting on the couch. Nobody is home. I was getting ready to turn the TV on, and he walked in the front room and sat
Mm.
in the rocking chair across from me and started rocking back and forth. And I closed my eyes and counted to 10. And I opened my eyes and he was gone, but the rocking chair was still going.
Oh
So I
God,
jumped
it's
up
even
and I
worse.
ran out of the
Somehow worse.
house. Yeah,
It's somehow worse.
somehow worse. But
He
yeah,
walked in and sat down.
he
Like you
walked
saw
down.
him.
Yeah, I saw him. He walked in. I could see through him, and I never could see his facial features really well. And he sat in the chair and started rocking back and forth. And the chair was rocking, and just right there in front of me. And I closed my eyes and counted to 10, probably really quick. But when I opened them, he was gone, but the chair was still rocking. So
You
I
couldn't tie
jumped
it to like
out
a
and
relative or a
headed out.
previous owner or anything?
Yeah, eventually I did. When my grandma passed away, my grandma and grandpa had passed away. My grandma passed away last, and we were helping clean out her house. There were some old books, old photo albums, and I was flipping through, and I got to an old picture of my house, and here's this guy, and he has a white shirt, tall, skinny, overalls, hat, and I about fell out of my chair.
Oh,
And come to find
man.
out, that was a great great uncle that owned it in the 1920s, owned that farmhouse in the 1920s. So at least that ghost I'm related to. So
That's crazy.
yeah.
That's
Yep.
like that, like you see the movies about a house being haunted with something crazy, and they go, I'm dating myself here, but they always show them in the library with a microfiche, and they find like the obituary or the scandal, and that there's that ghost.
Yeah,
God, that's
exactly.
got to be to tie it in like that has got to be. It's if a Bigfoot sighting's here, it's like here.
Yeah, it's right there. So yeah, it was I about fell out of my chair. It was
Mhm.
crazy. Well, and then what's even funnier is when not too long ago, so my parents still live in the house. They're both on hospice, so we have people coming and going and helping. And I in the basement, I found some of those old charcoal drawings back in the day. Instead
Yeah.
of like photography, they would have somebody come in and do charcoal drawing. I found 3 or 4 of those hidden in the wall, and uh, going through and doing genealogy, it was actually his, I believe, his wife and one of his sons, and so it's kind of cool that I have those now and stuff. But it's pretty crazy. Yeah, it was some crazy stuff that went on when I was a kid for sure.
Well, did he pass away in some kind of tragic accident or?
No, from what I understand, he just passed away of old age in the house. So,
Yeah.
but he did
So
pass away in the house. So,
he's just chilling then.
yeah, there is one of the ghosts, whether it's him or not, I don't know. Definitely has uh, a a mischievous streak, I
Yeah.
guess you could say, but nothing malevolent. There's nothing evil about it. There was never anything evil. I mean, when I was a kid, of course, it was scary. The older I
Oh
got, the
yeah.
more I got used to it. But um, yeah, definitely nothing evil. Uh, but at times there was, for example, my oldest son, when he was a teenager, he spent a lot of time at grandma and grandpa's growing up, and my mother had this snowman that was about 3 feet tall, and it was made out of almost like burlap, and then it had a sandbag base so it would stay where it was. Well, he always hated that thing because when they would bring it up for Christmas, it tended to move around when nobody was home, and he just didn't. My son did not like that thing. Well, one summer he was painting for Grandpa. He's doing some work and painting the hallway in the basement, and in the basement's where they kept all of the decorations and stuff they weren't using. And he's got his earphones in, and he gets a creepy feeling. He's 15 at the time. He gets a creepy feeling, and he looks, and in the corner, he looks around the corner, and then in the corner of the room, the snowman's sitting there. So he goes in and he turns the snowman around to face the corner, and then he goes back and he starts, painting and working in the hallway with his earplugs in, his earphones, and he just gets a really creepy feeling about 10 minutes later again. And he looks and peels around the corner into the room, and this hallway that he's standing is the only way in or out of that room. And not only had the snowman turned around, but it was about halfway across the room
Hell no.
towards him, and he was like, nope, I'm done. And he went up and told my dad, his grandpa, he's like, I'm not going back there if the snowman's there. And so they ended up putting it on the porch, and I think my mom did sell it at a garage sale eventually, but hopefully nothing went with it. But um, that was kind of some of the stuff I like to do, to play tricks on people, especially if they really, like my son, it really bothered him, so they tended to play tricks on him a lot. So
Man, somebody that went to that garage sale has a story about a snowman right now. I can't go
a
believe
haunted
this.
snowman.
It was a snowman, Mom. It was a snowman. I
Yeah.
promise. Burnt the house down.
Oh, that's funny, but
Man, that's the
yeah,
creepiest stuff. The haunted doll things,
yeah,
always moving.
yeah, yep. And it's funny because through all of this, I've been doing this. I've been interviewing people since I was 17. So it's been, I mean, I don't want to age myself, but it's almost 30 years. And over that time, there's people that I've interviewed and they have this object that has something attached to it. And I get the story and they don't know what to do with it. And so I end up taking it. I keep it locked in my safe, these things, and they don't seem to bother anybody as long as they're in the safe and I keep them away and everything. But it's interesting to get a hold of some of these things and have them in my possession. But
Yeah, like the haunted clowns that move around in that one hotel.
right. Or that island in Mexico that's full of dolls.
Yes,
That
dolls.
one I would
Yeah.
definitely not go to.
Yeah, that's my last name too. It's funny. It's like it's my legit last name is Doll. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a running joke called dolls are creepy. Yep, I agree.
But it's
Dolls are the
creepy.
worst. Tiffany agrees.
Yeah.
We all have giant heads. I don't understand. Like my whole family has like a size 8 head.
I got a big head too. I can never find a hat that fits properly unless it's adjustable.
There's a company called Mammoth Headwear
Oh,
that
I'll have to
makes it
look
for
that
giant
up.
heads. I know
I'll
in the
have-
Doll Island episode of the I can't think of what show it was. You know, fill in a blank documentary. They would always have the cutaway and show something creepy, and it was always the doll's eyes open. I'm like, I know how they're doing that, but I wish they would stop. I know it's just
Yeah.
I
Yep.
know they're holding it down and just moving their finger off of it, but I wish they would quit doing that because I don't like it.
No, I agree. And I'm one of those that I don't like clowns. Clowns are creepy to me. So um,
I was thinking of It, not
oh yeah.
Dreamcatcher, but It. Yeah,
It. Yeah. Yep, that one's definitely creepy for sure. So
Expedition Unknown.
yeah,
There's a
Expedition Unknown.
what's the island in South America that's full of deadly poisonous snakes and no one's allowed to live in?
Oh
Would
yeah,
would you rather go to that one or the Doll Island?
I'd almost rather face the snakes personally. Snakes, I mean, I know that they're poisonous and deadly and everything, and I've had my run-ins with snakes over the time, but I don't know. Dolls are gross, especially if it's like the worst is if it's a clown doll. That's the worst.
Yeah,
But
that talks.
yeah. Oh yeah. So that was another thing that I found was really interesting because I had an experience with this myself. There's a doll out there. So I got it for my oldest son when he was a baby.
Hmm.
It was called Sleepy Time Ernie. It was Ernie from Ernie and Bert.
Hmm.
And the thing would wake up, would like make noises like in the middle of the night. And I took the batteries out of it, and then it still kept doing it every once in a while. So I threw the sucker away. But I interviewed somebody later on that had an experience where they had bought that for their son around the same time too, and it would talk without the batteries, and it would show up in the hallway and talk
Man,
without the batteries. Ernie would start saying, "Oh, I'm sleepy," and he would grab it and flip it over and curse somebody put batteries back in it, and it wouldn't have the batteries in it.
you know, the lid would be off of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, no, that one was really creepy. Yeah. So
I can't handle that. I went to a paranormal convention last weekend and somebody had a remote control Chucky on a tricycle running around. I'm like, if that gets near me, I am going to kick it. I'm going to kick the shit out of it.
yeah,
But then I kept trying to find it with the video camera and not get too close.
right.
Like, I ain't going to like that at all.
There you go. Yep. That one. And then they've always got that the doll from Saw on the tricycle.
Oh, yeah.
That one's creepy too.
Those are almost not as creepy as a clown or something like that, though.
Yeah.
Or like an old porcelain one has have something missing on it.
Yeah. Yep. Oh,
Among
funny.
other things.
Yeah.
I think the creepiest thing around here are the old, you know, like a slave cemetery or an American burial ground, American Indian burial ground,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what they attribute like the Bell Witch to,
Oh,
and things
right,
like that.
right. Well, and not too far from me. Well, I say not too far from me. It's about 30 miles or so. Was one of the biggest massacres of Native Americans. It's called the Bear River Massacre.
Oh yeah.
It was a group out of regulars out of California that came in and did that, and that whole area is just really full of paranormal stories. I've
Hmm.
collected a lot. I haven't written any of those because I want to make sure I do that in the right tone, if that makes sense. Not,
Oh yeah.
um, but yeah, a lot of lights and a lot of things that go on there, and it's also got a lot of thermal um, springs, hot springs in the area, which
Yeah,
kind
for
of
sure.
seem to feed that energy as well. So
I think it does because that's like ancient and it's never and paired with the fact that anytime that kind of stuff's around, there's not a lot of people,
yeah,
and so nothing's really messing with it,
right. Yep,
especially
that's
when it comes to
exactly
like
it. So
Yellowstone.
yeah, I was reading not too long ago about when John Coulter found Yellowstone and he was trying to explain it to people and nobody believed him. They thought it was a tall tale. They're like, "No, you're full of it. You're full of it." And he's like, "No, I'm serious."
The ground's doing what?
Yeah, I know, right? They're like, "It's bubbling," and they're like, "No, nope, it's not."
There's bear and buffalo. Shut up. There's no such thing as buffalo. That's just a deer.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's
My
funny.
janitor at work says buffaloes aren't real. They're just cows.
They're just cows, just
Because
fluffy
buffaloes
cows.
aren't real. Man,
Boy, you go to Yellowstone, you'll know it. They're real.
Yep.
They tend to get a lot of people up there.
I stay the heck away. Those things are so much bigger than you think they are.
Yeah. Oh, they're huge. Last time I was up there, a big bull walked right past our car, and you had to look up through the window to
Hmm.
see it. It's like a giant tank. But
And they got those big humps
yeah.
on their back.
Oh yeah.
Did you ever see
Yep.
the show Outer Range with Josh Brolin?
I watched a
Like,
couple of those episodes. Yeah.
yeah, and the whole thing was about a haunted buffalo. That's a good show. I hope it comes back.
Yeah.
In the last
That was
episode,
really weird.
yeah, it was classic. If you haven't seen it, I recommend everybody watch Outer Range. It's only one season. I think they're coming back with another one, but good lord, it was good.
Yeah. It was like Yellowstone meets X-Files kind of a deal.
Because you think it's Yellowstone, and you don't know what's going on. You think it's just like, oh, they're copying Yellowstone, and then it just takes a turn,
Yeah.
and it yanks the wheel to the left hard off a mountain. If you don't know the twist of it, man, you're not even halfway there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's wild.
Oh, it's crazy.
Let's see here. We've been going for an hour and 8 minutes. Holy crap!
Flew by, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we get to talking about this, and I start doing this really strong coffee. It's like I'm doing a rip of Coke. I'm like Hitler when he's trying to convince Mussolini not to leave the army, not to leave the war. Just ISIS.
You gotta go.
I was looking up. I was seeing if I remembered anything. What is the? Did you? Are these from around the world? Like you interview people from around the world about it?
Yeah. So my last one, Stranger World, that one right there
Yeah.
that you've got up. I have some people that I interviewed in Germany,
Yeah. That's what I was going to
Australia,
ask. How far
England.
away? How crazy?
Yeah. In like I said, Australia, couple in Germany, couple in England, one from Brazil, Mexico. I'm trying to think where else was in that one, but yeah, from all over the world. It was a lot of fun to talk to people from the one that I did in that I interviewed a gentleman in Australia. He talked about he has an eidetic memory, which is what most people call what do they call it, where you remember everything. Basically,
Yeah.
you can remember everything. But he remembered being a little kid and he would go to his grandma's, and while his mom and grandma were in the front having a cup of coffee talking, he'd be in the back playing with this little boy that would come out of the closet, and he wore old funny clothes, and they would talk, and the little boy told him he'd come on a ship, and he got sick, and and something happened, and he lost his mom, and he couldn't find his mom, and like for years he would play with this little kid, and but then the older he got, the more blurry and this little kid got until I think he said by the time he was 9, he could barely see him and he was gone. But because he had an eidetic memory, he could remember that. And what, most kids think, you think most kids have imaginary friends. You wonder
Yeah.
how many of those, because little kids have a tendency to see more when it comes to the paranormal. Their eyes are a lot more open, that you never know with kids that they might be actually talking to ghosts or something that
Hmm.
they're calling their imaginary friends. And that was what it was with him. So,
Man, imagine.
because not too far from his grandma's house at the time, he found out that that's where the quarantine was for anybody coming from England at the time. They had to stay in quarantine. And I guess the little boy had come on a ship, got sick, and died in the quarantine, and had just wandered not too far. And that's where he found him. So,
What country was this?
Australia.
Australia? Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
I always forget that Australia is just like America when it comes to immigration.
Right. They had a lot
Just
of the same.
Europeans.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. It's very similar. So,
That documentary about Big Sugar, the guy's talking about how he's French and Irish. I'm like, wait, you're all, oh yeah, you're the same as us,
yeah.
just slightly
Yep.
drunker.
Yeah, it's funny. I love looking at, I love history on top of everything else.
Mhm.
And it's interesting to see, because you can look at the different counties across the United States and what kind of nationality kind of settled them.
Mhm.
Where I'm at. So on my dad's side of the family, I can trace back to some of the original pioneers that came to this valley and settled. And a lot of them are English and Danish. And in fact, I have a lot of Danish family through my dad's side all the way back, and which is kind of cool. So,
Mhm. I
but
got
a lot
the
of ghosts that come with the territory of, going back through history.
here, let me write something down.
Okay.
Something I wanted to hit before we leave. That's anecdotal but interesting. The county of Coleman, Alabama, just south where I'm at, was founded by a German immigrant, and so they have all the festivals that Germany would have. What was that? Kids out on the door. That scared me to death. Good God, I'm over here. Put that on TikTok. Y'all just saw me get the shit scared out of me by a dog with a face under the door. Oh my God. Anyway, okay, I wasn't expecting that. I thought they were asleep. And anyway, it's founded by Germans. They have all the German festivals, so it's crazy how that works out.
Yeah, it is, and it's kind of cool because you see some of these these things that they do, and you're like, well, where does that come from? And some of them, like you say, German, and some of them are Danish and English, and so.
I'm in Huntsville, Alabama, and this is where they brought all the Nazis from Operation Paperclip.
Oh yeah,
And so everything's German around here, like it or not. And you're like, y'all got to calm it down
Yep.
a little bit, all right? I'm getting a little too free with it. And the funny part about it is all the local protesters back in 2020 marching to tear down the Confederate monuments past 3 buildings named after a Nazi. I'm like, you missed one.
yeah,
Hey, y'all, you missed the von Braun complex.
right,
Literal Nazi.
yeah. Isn't that funny? It's you could go through, and this is, I mean, not to get, I don't want to get too political, but yeah, you can't nitpick on history, because everybody's got things in their past. If you're alive today, at some point your ancestors were being stepped on by somebody, and your ancestors were stepping on somebody.
You're
if you're
doing
alive
some
today,
stepping.
so yep. So
Especially if you're European. If you're European, you took over that country from somebody.
yeah, yeah. History is just full of just strange, everything going on with these people invaded these people, and then these, it's just it's crazy. So
It seems like we're only erasing the history we have actual pictures of.
yeah,
Like those big old cameras will right about erase the history from the invention of that onward. Before that,
right,
it's fine because that's just history. That's that history that never happened, kind of in their mind.
right.
But God
Yeah.
forbid.
Yeah, it's interesting for sure.
That's the reason they're trying to get Thanksgiving and Columbus Day, and it's not really working.
Hmm.
And because
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, like, ease up off the turkey, all right? We get it.
Oh, I love turkey.
Oh,
That's one of my favorites.
Kassoon is about to get a wake up call.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
Brendan von
Wonder,
Braun was actually a Nazi.
yeah, he
When
was
the
a
United
Nazi
States,
scientist.
when the United States and Russia took over Germany, they actually were scrambling both sides to get as many scientists as they could. And
It was like the draft.
yeah, it was like the draft. Everybody got took Nazi scientists, and in fact there was one, and I can't remember his name, but he actually did a lot of things with germs and stuff, and the United States took him, and he's the father of basically the Lyme disease that we have going around right now. He developed that, so it's kind of crazy.
It was definitely German, Kassoon. If not, he was Austrian, which is the same thing.
Yeah, he was a scientist in Germany for sure. So, yep.
He lived 10 miles from where I'm sitting right now.
Oh, does he? Did he? Yeah, in
his
Germany.
His current office is a 10-minute drive from my house.
Yeah. Yep. But history
I mean,
is.
it was either them or us with the von Braun guys.
Right, because we were in the middle of the Cold War race at that point. So,
yeah, would you rather us go to the moon? And
yeah,
this is another story for another show. That's
a rabbit hole we won't get into.
Yeah, but I don't want to keep you much longer. But sometimes, like, I call myself a red pilled podcaster, and Austria Germany is like the same as Austria and Germany is the same thing at this point. At that point in time, there's Austria, Hungary, Prussia, Germany. It was all
right. Well, and because I mean, technically, Hitler was Austrian, not German or something. So but I'm not not claiming to be anything.
That is the definition of semantics.
Yeah, right. But it doesn't matter.
For me to do this and this to be my passion and future career as I manifest, namaste, to be a red pill podcaster and work on the base where that is just, I kind of pinch myself sometimes. Like, I'm manifesting this stuff and it's just happening. It's like I've always done it.
Yeah. Yep.
Because I'm from the next county over, which is literally 1850 still.
Oh.
And then Huntsville area is the Pentagon of the South. It's like the hub of technology. It's like Silicon Valley.
Oh, right.
It's crazy. And to think where I grew up 40 miles over there is still 1828. Like, they even had the Civil War yet. It's still coming.
Right.
It's coming soon.
I interviewed, a friend of mine went on a hunt, and he ended up in the in the back of I want to say somewhere in the South there, and he was meeting people, and he was like, it was like going back 60 years. It was crazy.
Yeah. It's not that bad, but it's the difference in Huntsville and my hometown are crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah. I gotcha.
Depending on
I have not spent a lot of time in the South. I'd love to go down. I like I said, the ghost history and everything. I'd love to.
It's incredible.
Go through. Yeah.
I actually got invited last night to the haunted South Pittsburgh Hospital, one of the most famous haunts in Tennessee. And it's cool. Just across the Tennessee line from my hometown in Alabama. So I've been by there a million times. He goes, "You want to go?" I'm like, "Yeah, I want to go." Get me. Do I want to go? I got to work it out because I've got invited to a giant Sasquatch meet the week before. So I'm like, I have to buy my wife a new car for this shit.
There you go.
Well, anyway, John, you've been great. I won't keep you much longer because we're starting to rabbit hole it, and I don't have anything else to do, but you probably do because you're busy.
No
you could
worries.
Freeze to death any minute in Utah right now.
I'm looking at the snow hitting my window right now. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it really snowing?
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
It's really snowing. It's crazy.
Are you on the northern or bottom of Utah?
Northern. I'm up in the northern part, not too far from Idaho. So, but we get quite a bit. Last winter was bad. What was that?
I said, never gets cold in Idaho.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Freaking Donner Party out
cold
there.
I know. It's going to be minus 13 next week, they said. So it's going to be cold. Wow.
All right. Well, this has been author John Olsen. And if you look in the description of this video, and it's going to be on the podcast episode too, on the audio, it's got the Amazon, his little Amazon store there, all his books. John E. Olsen, got a bunch of them.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a lot of fun. So
it really was. I love authors so much. Anytime I see an author, I'm like, you're mine now. Put them in my pocket. Because you've done. I tell you what it is. You guys have done all the research. You come built in with a stick.
Right. We've got the stories.
You got something to sell, which is an ultimatum, and you got research.
Yep. And that works. That works.
Billy Mays here. All right, y'all. Everybody, thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe and share, and stay warm. I know we're going to have to batten down the hatches tonight for tornadoes, followed by the snow. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks, global warming. Turn it back on. All right. Thanks, man. Everybody check the description for John's books, though. Thanks. Peace.
I never didn't believe in Bigfoot. I never believed in it. I didn't believe in it. I never gave it any thought.
They kept wood knocking back and forth to each other, and it was in a pattern.
Barn owls don't typically throw rocks.
I come across these tracks.
Sasquatch is still not on my mind.